Welcome to the Government Affairs Committee for today, which is August 7th, Wednesday, August 7th at 6 p.m. And we'll do a little roll call. Barry Johnson.
Here.
Great. Marcia Newman.
Here.
Great. Randall Freed is an excused absence. He flew out this morning. Victoria Shulam.
Here.
Great. And Jeff Carter said he's coming. And somehow I don't see Rick Rosner, but that may have been an omission. He should be here. And Brian Carroll ex officio. So, and I'm here, Eric Previn, the chair. So now we can move on. So we did have a meeting in July, and here are the minutes, including the big agenda that we attached to. We did what we said, which was to report to the board on last night. So this becomes the minutes. We were unanimous to report to the board on those issues, and I will just file those with Barry. If people want to look at it or reference it, they can. It's just our agenda from last time. And without any objection, we can move on to update from the committee chair, which is me. So the update is we had a great event courtesy of the Public Safety Committee of the Neighborhood Council last night, and all of the council district office and the city attorney, everybody came out for National Night Out at Beaman Park on the field. No irony there, but it was great, and everybody had a lovely time. And I thought that was really nice. It was a good community kind of midsummer event. So it was nice to see many of you there.
Was nice.
So that's my update on the local stuff. Now tonight we will accept public comments from anybody, of course, on subjects now. So this would be a good time if you want to make a little speech or say something on anything relating to the neighborhood or the neighborhood council. And of course we have agendized some issues about the open space, but this would be a good time if you want to kick it off with some angle or not. It's up to people if we want to follow along. Or do you have a public comment, sir? Are you from the public?
Hi, good evening.
Are you Edgar?
I'm actually on the agenda.
You're Edgar. Oh, great. Okay, so we'll get to you in a moment. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad to have you. But would you like to make a public comment before or not?
Just happy to be here. This is my first time at Studio City Neighborhood Council, and really excited to speak with you all in a moment.
Great. And Patty, member of the public, Lori.
Good.
I'm good.
Adele? Good. We'll save it for later.
Save it for later.
Okay, fair enough. Or we run a loose committee, so once we get into it, we'll go around the room and hear from everybody on the subject. So, but first, Barrett, any comments on anything off? Okay. Then I guess we can start with our short presentation from Edgar Ortiz of LAANE, which stands for the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy, well-regarded group in town, and he would like to speak about the Fair Workweek. So we'll be happy to hear. Now, did you bring a copy of your thing?
Yes, sir.
Great.
I think it should be enough. So I'm gonna hand these around. If you could take one and pass it around, and if you could do the same thing. So these are different. So if everyone has one of each, then it should be perfect.
Thank you.
I don't know what day this is. It's August 7th already?
Can you believe it?
No.
Take one for you.
My life has
Martha.
been like, I feel like I'm living in a tornado.
What is this? Look, we're here. Come in.
Welcome.
Hey,
This is Louis Sanford from my street.
Hi, Louis. Welcome.
No problem.
Thanks for coming.
pull the chairs up.
We're just hearing
We can
from
move up.
Edgar now, who it's our first item on the agenda from a presentation from LAANE. So,
Perfect. So good evening, everyone. It's nice to meet you all. My name is Edgar Ortiz. I'm a research and policy analyst with the Los Angeles Alliance for a New Economy. Our acronym is LAANE. We're an economic and social justice organization that's been working in the city for more than 26 years now in various industries ranging from retail, K-12 education, waste, the ports, and energy. And I'm here today in regards to a policy that we're currently pushing in the Los Angeles City Council, which is known as the Fair Workweek Ordinance. Just out of curiosity, before I go further down the rabbit hole, has anyone here ever worked in retail or have relatives who've worked in retail?
Well, yeah, no people, sure.
Okay. So this policy is one that we're pushing to affect the retail industry, which is the second largest in the region, made up of 147,000 workers. And the reason for this is we're hoping to make Los Angeles the 9th city in the country that has enacted the Fair Workweek ordinance that provides more stability in the work schedules for retail workers. And our motivation for this is through conversations that we've had with retail workers over the past 4 years since the since the minimum wage ordinance was passed, we found that despite the fact that there have been increases in the amount that workers are paid per hour, this hasn't actually resulted in the intended benefits and wage increases that were expected. And this is primarily due to the fact that retail is a primarily low-wage industry that is governed by the number of hours that a worker works. And when a worker fails to have stability in terms of how far in advance they know what their schedules are going to be, if they know how many hours they're going to work week to week, and how much control they have over their own schedule versus their employer, this can significantly affect how much money they're making. And in fact, workers can actually be making less than what they would have been making before the minimum wage ordinance had passed.
Enter.
And so to better understand this issue, in 2016 we partnered with the UCLA Labor Center to conduct a study which is known as the Hour Crisis, where we wanted to get a snapshot of what's happening in the retail industry and what are the issues that workers are dealing with right now. And we found that from more than 800 workers that we surveyed, 8 in 10 don't know what their schedule, 8 in 10 have unstable schedules, which mean, let's say, this week I'm going to be working 30 hours. The next week I could be working something completely different. It can be 12 hours. And if I'm somebody who is trying to live in the city of Los Angeles, that affects how much I'm earning. And I never know if I'm going to have enough money to pay for food for the month or have enough money to pay for rent. And so this is an issue that is widely prevalent, not just in retail, but in other sectors.
all work at Universal, huh?
We've also found other issues, like, for example, almost 80% of workers don't get at least 2 weeks advance notice of what their schedules are going to be. So let's say on Sunday you're waiting to hear on what your schedule is going to be for Monday. We found that a large number of workers have this issue in various stores across the city of Los Angeles. And also nearly 50% are working involuntary part-time, which means that they're currently part-time and they would like to be working more hours, and they are fully experienced. They have everything that you would want from an employee, but they are not getting these hours for for a multitude of reasons, including the fact that companies are trying to cut hours, or they want to hire employees from outside the company rather than giving in-house employees an opportunity to work these hours. And so with this study, we decided to move forward with creating a coalition called Fair Workweek LA, which is made up of faith and clergy organizations, health and wellness activists, organized labor, retail workers, community activists, and other allies in order to push this policy, which would provide among a number of things, a minimum of 2 weeks advance notice for workers in stores that have 300 or more employees worldwide. So this wouldn't affect your small mom and pop businesses. It would affect like your Marshalls, your Michaels, Targets, Trader Joe's, stores like that. It would also require that companies do not force their employees to work club opening shifts, which is if an employee comes in for the night shift and closes, they can't be forced to come in and open, because we recognize that this can have significant detrimental effects on their sleep quality, their happiness, and their ability to function, given the correlation between productivity and sleep quality. It would also require that companies provide workers who want to work more hours an opportunity to get these hours in good faith before they're offered to outside employees. It would also institute a program of predictability pay and protect workers from retaliation, given the fact that oftentimes workers who request a little bit of flexibility, say if they are students or if they need to arrange for childcare for their children, or if they have a death in the family, there have been reports that companies who are not in support of this can retaliate against workers by cutting hours or changing their schedules. So this is about changing the power dynamic and providing more support in respect to the welfare of the worker. And so just really quickly now going into the policy itself. On March 1st, a motion was introduced by Councilmember Curran Price, Paul Koretz, and the President Herb Wesson to move this policy forward, which includes the 5 components that I had just mentioned. And this motion passed in the last week of June through the Economic Development Committee and through a unanimous vote. And so now we're working to move this policy forward through another round of committee meetings. And the goal is to have this policy passed by the end of the year. As I mentioned, we'd be the ninth city that passed this. 2 weeks ago, Chicago passed their own Fair Workweek ordinance, and before that it was Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Emeryville, and the state of Oregon. And so we're going to be working to pass this policy, and the request that we would make of the Studio City Neighborhood Council is, if this is something that is meaningful to you, I passed around a sample of what a community impact statement would look like. We would ask your organization to consider the facts, and if you are in support, signing and submitting this to the Los Angeles City Council, which would signify your support for the retail workers in the city. Just really quickly, we've had multiple organizations already come in and sign this, such as the Wilmington Neighborhood Council, Pacoima Neighborhood Council, the Zapata King Neighborhood Council, Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council, and this policy has been supported by organizations such as St. John's Hospital, the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, the Center for Popular Democracy, and over 60 other organizations, both in Los Angeles and across the country. So that is my wrap.
Thank you, Edgar. That's a nice presentation. Maybe we could open it up for questions. Rick?
How much pushback do you get from business?
So we actually haven't gotten vocal opposition as of now. We went to the Economic Development Committee, and there were statements from VICA and the Chamber of Commerce, not so much opposing it, but just to remain in the loop on this. So we haven't come across any vociferous hostility towards the policy as of now.
Barry?
It's as somebody who starts work in a range of 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., I get this, but who enforces this? Because in Los Angeles, we're all gung-ho about passing all these things, and then there's never any enforcement of any of it. Basically, I always say the only thing that gets enforced in LA is if you murder someone. So how would this be enforced any more so than anything else isn't in this city?
Of course. So we've been involved in conversations with the Bureau of Contract Administration, which is housed within the Department of Public Works, and they are the ones who currently oversee the minimum wage and paid sick leave policy, and they would be the ones that would be enforcing this policy. And we're working with them to require what other cities have done, which is that companies that are eligible to post in their workplaces notice that this is what Fair Work Week is, and this is what you as a worker are entitled to, and if you have any complaints, you can bring them up with the Bureau.
So this would how are you going to get funding for enforcement?
So that's something that we're currently engaged in conversations with the city attorney's office, as they're the ones who are working on developing the language of the ordinance, and together as well with the chief legislative analyst's office, which is looking into ways that other cities have enforced this. And so we're proactively engaged in conversations there to make sure that we get this right. Because yeah, like you said, enforcement is a big issue in various areas, and we want to make sure that this is something that has the intended effect that we would like it to.
Yes.
So an employee would report to their employer for an infraction?
An employee would report this directly to the Bureau of Contract Administration if they want to report a violation.
And then is there any security for this employee who would probably get reprimanded? No.
So this is something that they would also communicate to the city, because if the ordinance does pass, and we intended to include an anti-retaliation clause, then this is something that they would also be legally protected with, and this is something that would bolster their case in the event that there is actual abuse happening in the workplace.
Okay, I'd like to give you a practice for business pushback. Okay. Many of these retailers are under pressure from online shopping. What's the employment population? Did you say 140,000?
In the Los Angeles region,
Uh-huh.
around 147,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
It's the second largest.
Okay, with a job, any job. Okay, I mean, if you go into the malls around here, they're not very busy because people are shopping online. So here's just some practice pushback. Okay, and a business could say, I don't want to do business. I'm going to close down the Marshalls in LA. It's too burdensome for me. Okay, I'm just going to close them down. And then you have 3,000 people that don't have jobs anymore in LA. Or whatever stores. I mean, Target isn't going to close. Target's under pressure from Amazon. Okay? So you have to, and preparing this, I really think you have to get business at the table discussing what they can handle and what they can't, because you don't want to create unnecessary burdens for businesses to just say, I'm closing the doors in LA. You know, it's just much easier in Las Vegas. We're going to put all of our investment in Nevada because I can do business there. Screw LA. Because they'll do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, businesses have to operate as seamlessly as possible. So if you put so many requirements, they're going to say, I'm out of here. So I really recommend you bring the other side of the table and very active discussion, because some of these you may have to eliminate or adjust.
And I understand that that's obviously when you're having a policy discussion, there is always going to be a point where you are not going to get everything you want, and you want to try and get to a happy medium, and so we do recognize that fact. I would like to, if possible though, address some of the things that you brought up, just in the interest of
Sure.
everyone, because also this is something that we have gotten a lot of, and thank you very much for bringing it up. So we have seen retail stores closing down, obviously, like most recently Gymboree just filed for bankruptcy. However, it's a very complex series of things that's going into it. We would argue that it's not just on e-commerce that's happening. You also have the role of private equity, where you have stores like Toys R Us that are being bought, and you have these companies that are just piling debt on debt and slashing employee benefits and roles in order to take over those assets and do whatever they wish with them. So there's a lot of things going on in this. At the same time, though, we've seen in other cities that when you institute a progressive policy like this, despite arguments that this is going to drive away businesses, that's actually not the case. There was actually a very recent study, I think from last week, that was produced on the minimum wage increase that happened in New York. And they've been studying this over 5 years, given how far back they've already implemented. And they found that the restaurant industry is actually thriving there. There's been a lot of wage boosts for employees, full-time and part-time, and there's also been an expansion of how many places are growing. And we believe this is it because big cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, this is where people congregate. This is where people are always going to be no matter what. And so it's very counterintuitive for a company that's trying to bring in as much business traffic as possible to just go in and say that this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And one last point is, we've seen how businesses that implement this actually do well. In 2015, the Gap store did a study where they implemented several components of Fair Workweek, including providing more hours for part-time workers, instituting an anti-retaliation clause, and a 2-week minimum advance notice. And they found that from the treatment stores that implemented in Chicago and San Francisco, those stores actually saw increases in revenue by $2.9 million, which is a little over 6%. And the reason for this from the study was that oftentimes it tends to be very understated what it takes to be an effective retail worker, knowing what the inventory is like, knowing how to engage with customers interpersonally, and knowing marketing skills that increase the probability of buying something. These are things that workers are able to sharpen when they're worried about doing their jobs and not worried about how many hours they're going to get week to week. And so we found that this can have positive effects for businesses as well. And we do want to frame this in a way that it's great for everybody. You know, we're not just victimizing retail. We want to make sure that this is an economy that works for everybody, and also centering worker welfare in this conversation.
Thank you, Edgar. And I would make a motion to bring it to the board and see if they like the idea. You know, obviously they can think for themselves. This is our neighborhood council board. You know, I can just say that employers have a tough time, as Marcia pointed out. Barry makes a good point about enforcement, because, you know, you could say, if someone violates the land use rules, you just go downtown and but there's nobody to do anything about it. So, but I do think that these are reasonable rules from what I've heard, you know, that fair work is, I mean, my daughter, I'll just give one anecdote, had an internship where this is the old way of using people for labor, you know, without paying them too much or anything. And then converted it to a paying gig after working a dog week as a volunteer. And as soon as she got the gig for pay, her hours were cut back to like next to nothing. You know, and I'm not upset, because it's a good opportunity for her in both instances, but I point out that, you know, where there is room to take a little here and there, you could see how an employer would do it. This is a small business, so I don't, you know, what's she supposed to do? She's not running a charity, but on the other hand, with marshals and the big ones, I think we should be fair and hold them accountable. People deserve notice and all those things. So I will make a motion to bring it to the board and see if they're interested. Does anybody second it?
Second.
Okay, second from. So that does that sound good for you, Mr. Ortiz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll submit it more or less as written, unless somebody wants to edit it.
Any provisions for mediation, like some businesses, the way I would think grocery stores might have a problem with some of these, because they run 24 hour, if they're not open, they're stocking.
Yeah.
If a business wants to talk to its employees and say, look, we can't follow this guideline as to the letter of the law. And are you guys okay with that?
Well, I will say that to that effect that this isn't going to force any employee that wants to work flexible hours to continue to do that. And if there is an arrangement that an employee wants to make with the employer where they're fine with continuing to work schedules like that, then that's perfectly fine as well. We don't want to hinder that option. We just want to make sure that there is a little bit more balance in the dynamic between the employee and the employer. And if they can work that out, then more power to them. Absolutely.
You'd have to be really clear about that, because this sounds like everyone would be under these rules and regulations.
You mean delineate who
Yeah.
it applies to?
Yeah, I think that you have to be really clear about that. And again, I actually would not support this bill unless you had business entities working this through. I think it's essential.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for coming. Any other wrap up on that? Okay, good. So,
Thank you very much.
Well, very good. Thank
Really
you.
good presentation.
Yeah, you did a good job.
And your materials are really good.
Yep,
Appreciate it. And
Sure.
So the board meeting would be 2 weeks from tonight
correct.
Okay.
at 7.
great.
The third Wednesday, and we will forward this to our president. Can't promise because he's the one who sets the agenda, but he probably will put it on there.
I understand. And if anybody has any questions or would like more info, you have my contact info
Yes,
if you want to share it.
absolutely. And
Happy to answer
again,
anything.
appreciate the professional presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for your
Very
time.
good. This is very good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Edgar. And you're welcome to stay. We're going to talk about open space and Studio C, but we understand you've got things to do. Exactly. So we'll just continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, getting to the meat of the matter, here we are in Studio City in 2019, in August, and we're talking about some projects that are, we're facing in the future, and we know exactly what those are, but for the record, we have Harvard-Westlake, our neighbors, who have canceled the parking structure with the one soccer field in the hill, and purchased through the
Well,
help
I don't
of-
know if they've canceled it. They're just not doing anything right
Correct.
now.
Well, they withdrew their application on that one, which is a significant thing, because for a while they hadn't, but they did. Anyway, and then Charles Munger, who is a alumni and donor, bought the Harvard-Westlake property for everybody who doesn't know, but everybody knows, and he paid $43 million for it,
43.5.
a little bit more.
For the school?
Yeah.
Yeah,
no.
for the school?
Yeah, and I assume
Yeah,
he's
he's
going
on
to
the
donate
board
it
of
to the school, but
trustees.
it's being held by an LLC, is my understanding. But nonetheless, that happened. And that happened, by the way, in the end of 2017. Here we are in the middle of 2019, and recently they put out their plan, which you've seen it. They have been doing small meetings among invited guests, not invited, RSVP guests only.
From the 1,000-foot radius people.
Yeah, people who live
close
around the
people
property, right.
Are who were invited.
That's great. And so now we can open it up to people's reaction to what they've circulated. I brought a copy of what was there and what's they're proposing. Those two pictures are the same scale. And we can hear a little bit about the issues there from people who have come to the meeting. I mean, people are reacting to this. Some people for the first time. And I just bring up one issue as I kick it out there that at the moment,
these are the old.
this is a public amenity. It's open to the public. There's no identification or, you just have to pay the couple bucks and you can either play some golf or play some tennis. And the whole experience is for the locals of Studio City or people who come visit. The new plan is,
Which one is the new plan?
the new plan is the one with
This
all the.
one.
This is the new one?
That's the new proposal, with all these things on what you're looking at, which is a golf
So
course.
these are trees existing that will,
Yeah. It's a nine.
Is this what is existing now?
Yeah.
Or is this,
Yep. currently
That's what they
exists and currently run by Harvard-Westlake, who bought the concession when they bought the property, and it's just being run as a little golf course for the moment. But their plans for the future, which address their needs, as they mentioned in the Daily News, has significantly more, little plans, like 2 soccer fields, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, and a very large structure that I don't know the exact details of, but I'm sure on their website there's something there.
I can
But-
tell you what it is.
Yeah,
What is it?
you can tell us what it is, sure.
It's 3 gymnasiums for basketball, 3 basketball courts right next to each other,
So an enormous structure is the
and
translation.
1 community room, which is what, 1,000? What do you say? I can't remember the square footage of that for people, and 2, I think, locker rooms and a
Medical.
office for the coaches,
Mhm.
and a medical room.
Workout room.
A workout room below grade. We got that. I heard that. Did you hear that?
Something is
I
below
didn't
grade,
get
I
it the
know
first
that.
The workout room's going to be on
Underground.
But
below
that-
grade.
The
And-
thing is, there's some outbuildings that add to those 3 gymnasiums.
Right.
The outbuildings are the
Like a restaurant and a,
oh yeah, and then they're going to have a cafe.
This is for the students?
Well, it's
they-
not for the
this
neighborhood.
Is what's,
So-
this is what's questionable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't sign up to use the basketball court or the gym or any of that.
Or the
They-
workout room?
Well, let's
there's-
do, I know because we have so many voices, we can keep it casual, but let's go and raise
Yeah.
our hands a little bit, and we'll just try that.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So this is the first I heard about the cafe,
Yep.
and what
I
goes
forgot to
along
tell you.
with the cafe is a massive amount of deliveries and workers and coming and going, and hours before and after students.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause It's
Okay,
a restaurant.
that's a
essentially.
point. Rick, you mentioned also a question about whether or not people could use
Well,
the
obviously,
facilities.
I mean, they don't want, they want it for it to be just for the students and faculty.
Well, they're disingenuously saying that it can be used by people who somehow get permission.
Right.
Huh?
So I think what that means, at some of the local meetings, it's been reported that what they're saying is they're working on the details, but they're going to give certain people, probably around the perimeter, a pass to use the facilities during hours when they're not in use. So, but you're observant that it's they have a big high school basketball program, so the gym is going to be used during the times when. And
They also called it last night. They called it the campus,
Oh.
which
Oh, that's a new one.
I hadn't heard that before.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're calling this the campus?
Well, let me tell you.
Because they had
Let me
started
show you the
calling it the
campus.
River Park, right?
The campus.
Yeah, well,
Wait.
it was
The campus is the area surrounding these fields here, and the courts in this. This is the campus. Then this area here, this walkway, it's a walkway around the perimeter of the entire facility, is going to be open to the public. It will be basically a decomposed granite path with trees that they haven't murdered all around the edges of the property, and there'll be an entrance, and they want to include the river walkway somehow in their
Yeah.
plans. Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay, Victoria.
3 basketball courts, how many teams do they have?
They have a lot of teams.
A lot of basketball teams?
And
But-
last
but
night
still,
they also
it's
said
an enormous-
there'll be games there. There'll be competition
Well,
games
that
there.
they did admit that.
And what about
Yeah.
the parking's underground, right?
Yes,
And
250 to 500 spaces on one level, they said.
How many levels?
Under the
One
tennis and this
Oh,
field.
I'll show you where the entrances and the exits are. The entrance in,
If you want to see, you could.
sorry, it's
Can you hold
the
it up?
entrance on Whitsett here,
Uh-huh.
right? Sort of where the current entrance is now. That will go down below, and then they have another entrance right after the fire station. There's a little lane,
Yeah.
so you go down that lane, and then you go into the entrance there. I don't know if one's going to be in and one's going to be out. I have no idea, but also these will be the only 2 ways you can get into the property.
What's is there another
Which is
way?
good for
Except
the
walking.
neighborhood, not
Yeah, no,
having
I
an
think that's
entrance
okay.
on Valley
There's
Springs.
potentially
Except-
another way.
But you mentioned walking in the corner.
Okay, so last night they said that all this whole walkway. Okay, so here's this walkway around the perimeter.
Yeah.
Then around all of the fields is going to be another fencing.
The fencing?
Yeah, it'll be fenced off, so you cannot get from the walkway into the
Campus.
campus.
So it's my, I was
Unless
looking-
you're over here.
No, unless you come in this way or this
No,
way.
I understand they
Yeah.
want to protect the students. I get that.
Peter?
So what I'm hearing, I attended the first meeting, you attended the one last night.
Yep.
I listened very carefully. I never heard anything about food service, and this was practice. So
It's-
if my memory serves, maybe not, then we're not getting the same information from meeting to meeting. So
We got more information last night.
Well, at the meeting that we went to, somebody in the audience brought up the cafe that's
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
and what a good service it was.
that's different.
And
That's
I know, and they said that it was an interesting idea.
so that's one
So-
person and maybe a cook versus
Right.
feeding students. So I'm not clear on
Oh,
what they're
feeding
talking
students.
about.
Well,
It's a
I don't
whole
know. They were
different thing.
kind of making it sound like it was a, place where you could get, like drinks
Mhm.
and snacks.
Like now.
You know.
Well, they like the food they serve.
Frankly, like at all
It's food.
tennis clubs, or
Right.
they have a
Yeah.
little place where you can get a little. snack,
Even
yeah.
now they.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes.
So I sort of almost just for sanity's sake want to take each aspect of it and then look at each aspect,
Mm-hmm.
because we're going to jump around back and forth a lot. But parking underground, my understanding is we're all a liquefaction zone there.
They said that they've got engineers who said it's doable.
One-
For one level.
One level.
For one level.
From the previous developer.
Well, would one level get them? Thanks,
you.
Edgar.
Have a
Thanks.
good night.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Very
Edgar.
nice.
Would one level get them 400 spaces?
It could.
500.
500.
No,
You
no.
said
They
between
said
two.
They said between 250 and 500.
At our
big
meeting the
difference.
week before, they said 500.
500.
Yeah, people
Goes up
started.
every week.
This meeting were very upset about the parking issue, so they started equivocating.
Yeah. Also, I'm
Whatever.
remembering from the 750 parking space experience when we were balancing that idea, because that was what was being proposed on the hillside. 500 is a lot of cars,
Way too
and it basically would fill up almost the surface of a soccer field. So that's below ground. That's a big. Now, I'm happy to hear one. I'm not happy to hear it, but one story sounds at least reasonable compared to going so deep, because I was thinking this is a liquefaction zone. Anyway, so yeah, are there other issues that we should pound out right now before we jump in order? Yeah. Do you have a thought?
Oh, if you're going in order, that's.
No, not in order. I'm just trying to,
Like, okay, 3 basketball fields.
Yeah.
It's just to make it easy for them to, courts, to, they don't have to worry about scheduling anything. They always have a court available. If somebody did a study to see what their actual needs are, it would probably turn out that they could get by easily with 2, and just, somebody might have to play a basketball game at 8 p.m. instead of.
I don't think you appreciate what kind of a winning program they run over there. They have a lot of teams. I mean, they will.
Right.
You're right in a sense that they want the flexibility.
But they have a total on the two campuses of 1,600 students.
Yeah. Now, I'm
How
not
many
sure that it's fair
basketball teams
that.
can they have?
Well, no, because first of all, the campus that's relevant, I think, is here. Maybe there's a junior high on the other side.
There's-
but
yeah.
Is it a junior high?
Yeah.
Okay, but they probably have their own basketball court.
It's Westlake. There's Westlake and they're talking.
Right. But on this side, they have about 800 students, as we think.
Yeah,
That's something, about 1,000 students. But
So
in
they're only
every
talking
grade,
about
in every
servicing-
grade, they have several teams, because there's the big winners, and this is a very big girls. I mean, their need is not to be minimized, but because I think that they can generate a need, but that doesn't justify, in my opinion, and I'm not saying that we are here to justify what they. But 3 basketball courts, just from a pure character-changing open space, is an enormous structure. I'm sure. I've been. Yes, sir. So I've been studying the across the street basketball court with great interest. It is a big thing.
Right.
They are huge. They're not small.
What
They're
did he
huge.
say? 1,000 square feet?
Yes.
No, not 1,000.
13.
13,000.
13,000
Yeah.
square feet for
They-
one
they-
dot
Times 3.
times 3.
36,000. And that's just for the court.
Lori?
And they have, I think, 2 basketball courts up at their current gym. Plus, they have another building that's old and apparently terrible that is a gym that they want to tear down. So you'd think presumably they could put at least
Restore it
one of
there,
these
right.
courts where that is.
Right.
They want to tear down sports facilities on their current campus
One.
so they can, so they can build more classrooms because they want to have more students.
They said they denied that. We asked.
I
them.
know, they
Keep
always do,
denying
but
it, but what are you gonna do? That's
Yeah.
what they're gonna do.
You go on their website.
That's what they want to do.
And you take a look at all the sporting teams that they've got. It's quite impressive. So I can understand, and I was there last night, I can understand why they're shooting for the moon with this initial plan. But what I've said, and you think you remember this, I said there's a lot of duplication here between what you have on your campus now and what you're proposing here. And, you know, how many gyms do you need? How many athletic fields do you need? How many pools do you need? I think that got the room kind of like going.
Good.
Yeah.
And I think at that
Good.
point, they sort of stood back a little bit and they saw sort of the tide changing, but it's valid questions. I couldn't get a valid response.
No,
And you won't.
just
You
good for
won't.
asking.
And you will never.
You'll never know.
Well, you know, I think that the community's questions, which are bubbling up even as we speak, are, you know, worth addressing. And I'm a little bit concerned about the way they've chosen to meet with the community, which is in little controlled settings. You know, I don't want to jump the gun, but one thing that I've been thinking about, and I wonder if it would make sense, would be to have, you know, a forum where they will face not just handpicked people, but actually the members of the community who live there and the people who don't necessarily live right there, because they also have a stake, you know. And if you bring in the nearby neighbors and say, hey, we're going to take care of you, we're going to give you a pass, that's great, you know, they're going to get on board. Maybe, you know, I'm not suggesting they're being bought off because that would be improper, but, you know, let's assume that maybe that happens sometimes. We'll give you a preferential parking district, maybe a speed bump, and you're good to go with a gym pass. But then the rest of Studio City, who are going to experience the same impacts and the same, frankly, the thing that I'm most focused on, speaking on behalf of myself, is the loss of open space.
The green.
You know,
Yeah.
the loss
Yeah,
of
loss
being
of the
able. They say
green.
no, it's still open. It's not
God.
open space, frankly, to have a fence around it, a nice protective fence, even if it's to protect the kids. That's not the same thing. Even if it's done well, that's not the same
And they
thing.
insist also they're going to use AstroTurf, which is, you know, known to be a carcinogenic heat island. There, and I was very hard on them about you know.
It is a heat island.
They're heat. There's two of them. They, you know, they're horrible.
Yeah.
And
So-
then they reduce the trees, put the astroturf in, change the climate.
Yep.
Yeah.
It will change.
Yeah,
the
they
climate.
just
You were
raised
there
the
last night?
temperature of
Yeah.
the Earth at 1 degree.
I will say, bringing up a category that I think defines Studio City in many ways, and is extremely worrisome when you just look at it, and they have an answer, a ready answer, is the trees. So that's a lot of trees that are beautiful, and
Yeah.
you know,
At
they,
least 50 to 100.
I mean, that
they're
right
gonna get
there
rid
is
of?
very hard to
Have
sell to our community.
You
but
know what?
yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Is there any way we can compel them to make a presentation to the council?
Well, I think to the community, the council.
community.
I don't. I, yeah, I'm,
the,
yeah,
the
absolutely.
SCRA is having a special meeting for them to present.
Yes,
so
that's
not
in October. Even I think members
too
of the
late.
SCRA were
It's gonna
saying
be
We have
too
to
late.
move
that seems
faster
long.
than
I mean, that could be the follow-up
It's
meeting.
not going to be too late because
It
there's
is too late.
When are they breaking ground?
no, it isn't.
2
They're
years.
not doing anything right now. October is not too late to have
They're
a
going to
meeting.
file. They're going to file. What is it called? Where you say you're going to do what you're going to do. I don't know.
Intent.
Notice of preparation.
Yeah.
They're going to file a notice of preparation in October. If they file that, a lot of the things that we can do to prevent them will be not as effective.
They still have to do, after that do a DEIR.
They have to do all of
Yeah.
it.
I
Peter?
think the important thing, the umbrella over all this, is fresh eyes and fresh approach on all this, because it is slightly different than, you know, what's
the
been in the
past.
past. Because in the past it was, you know, it was a clear zone
Zone
change that was
change and
necessary, and
condos.
now they've found a you know, a way to make all that kind of
Perfect
maybe
buyer.
disappear. So definitely going down all kinds of extreme what ifs, just to see, because you might go, there might be a slight chance of this, and then you find some other little piece
Right.
of paper, and it's
Absolutely.
a new layer
Absolutely.
of discovery that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
who-
it's
who
great
is the
to be
person-
looking at all that.
Who is the person that donated the 43 million?
Charles Munger.
Who is he?
The vice
He's-
president of
Berkshire Hathaway.
He's a billionaire.
Okay.
Was in with
Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I'm gonna say this, and I've seen it too many times. It's like he doesn't know anything. He didn't go to college.
Right.
I don't care to give any of these people credibility and not kick all the tires is foolish.
Well, also,
Yeah, I agree.
I want to make a point because you brought it up, which was the prior obstacle was they're going to need a zone change.
Right.
Everybody
Yeah.
thought they're going to need a zone change.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding that in 2018, in fact, they applied for a zone change.
No, they didn't.
They did not.
They
That
started
was
the
not.
process.
No,
They
They
it was,
ended it.
it was in 2016. It was their DEIR, which started in
Okay.
2014. Then they changed the plan again to the preservation plan. But it's all been one DEIR, which was actually
Okay.
filed in 2014, and they withdrew it in 2018 after the sale.
What is it currently
Wait a minute,
zoned
wait a minute, I'm
as?
a little confused.
Agriculture.
Culturally one.
And so it had to be changed to educational.
Nope.
There is no education.
They're going to get a conditional use permit.
Right, that's how schools function in residential neighborhoods with CUPs. Every Buckley, Campbell
Right.
Hall, Archer, they all have them, and you can read them all online. And they're amazingly restrictive.
Right. They can be quite powerful
Yes.
and limiting, but they are per
what's
the
the
council
enforcement?
district.
Well,
They are
that's
per
the
the
other
council
thing.
district office in
Right,
the city.
but this isn't for a school. This is for a sports complex.
Well, no, it's part of the school. When you pay tuition to Harvard-Westlake, you have access,
to go
your
there.
students get to use that. That's part of your $50,000
That's
a
why they're
year.
calling it a campus now,
Yeah. Rick?
probably.
Probably.
Current level of use of the facilities there? Are they being used? as
Modest. I mean, people use it if you were there on the weekend.
Wait, you mean at Weddington?
Yeah. On the weekend, people in the evening in the summer, you'll see people playing golf. It's not a high traffic volume place, but the parking lot's always almost full.
One of the pictures they showed at the meeting I was at was a impressive view of the lighting
Oh, yeah.
at 10:30 at night. Well, the court's closed, and he says, "Oh, look, nobody's on the court." Well, the court's closed at 10. So he took the picture at 10:30.
Yeah,
But that's what they're.
right.
Right.
One of
Peter?
the things that was mentioned at
Sales.
your transportation committee when we had all those folks in the other building was the question was raised about safety, and that is the reason they did, according to Kaladian, whatever their lawyer, what's his name?
Edgar Kaladian.
Kaladian, the lawyer, that was the reason for the number one reason for building that monstrosity in the canyon is about safety, because they need to make sure that anyway, it was all about the children's safety and getting the number one complaint he said was that the kids park in the neighborhood.
Right.
So
Yeah, I've seen that.
now all of a sudden,
Well, in Campbell
has
Hall.
anybody heard about them getting the kids out of the neighborhood over there, or children's safety? I mean, this has nothing to do with kids' safety.
No, and you also remember that our neighbors up there were saying it's not so bad because they didn't want the solution in the hill. Remember,
Right.
Because so but it is a real concern because I think people are worried that people are going to come to this complex and park in the neighborhood.
Will the kids I guess they'll get shuttled between the campus and here. There'll be
Some will,
buses.
some will
That's what-
drive.
Then you don't
And they
need
say on their
500 spots.
website they're going to
But
get
as long
there
as
by
they have enough
driving.
parking spots, you wouldn't park on Valley Spring because you'd have to walk too far. Why would you walk so far if you can park underneath?
Yeah, the other thing that I saw suggested was that they would make it right turn only
Out of the property.
out of the property, which says to me that there's some barrier there, which means they're going to mess with the lanes. So does that
Of course
mean
they will.
can you turn left into the property from Whitsett, which is going to slow it down? And there's no way they can do a traffic study until Sportsman's is completed, because Sportsman's needs to do traffic mitigation on Whitsett.
They also talked about putting in a traffic light at the corner of Valley Spring and Whitsett.
We need that.
Yeah, that's
Valley
fine.
Spring,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. That's not a
Either
good
that
idea.
or one of those things like on Tahunga with flashing lights
I'd
and a
like one on
something.
Woodbridge too. We get a lot of cross traffic across Woodbridge
Mm.
who are
Thing is, it'll
avoiding
be
more
backed
park
up
in
to
cold water.
your freeway like cold water.
But I just think about the hypocrisy of people talking about being green, and then they're going to strip this all away and put recycled Ziplocs.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
And
Um,
And they pride themselves with being the most progressive environmental
Right.
heroes of
Oh, God.
education.
No.
So that's going to be an angle.
I think
That,
they
that
need-
and their reputation in general are like their two biggest things.
Right.
So
Oh, I understand, but I could care less about that.
no,
I mean, if
know.
they were-
No, the point is we can
Use
ding them. There.
Ding them
Right.
for being environmentally completely irresponsible. They
Right.
should actually switch their basketball program over to golf.
They should.
So
They said there were only 15 students who,
20, yeah,
15 and
20.
girls and 15 boys who were golfers, so
So-
it wasn't worth it for them.
another part of this equation is is the gym that's being proposed over at Beaman, because
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
full-size
that's another
regulation
problem.
court, so.
Right.
With a community room.
So, yeah, so here we go again. What do we need all that for? And then that's a lot of green space that's going away from that project.
The net
Well,
loss.
they wouldn't
to a
need
city
that
city.
if they could use the Harvard stuff.
They won't let them do it, I'm sure.
The one of the other things that bothers me the most is that, you know, one time they'll say, oh, well, we aren't having really spectators and games because we won't have that much noise and we won't have that much traffic. And then the other one is that they're saying, well,
Right.
there'll be other groups, clubs coming to the park.
ASO, AYSO.
Nonprofit schools.
Special
public
Olympics will be
schools,
held
Special
there.
Olympics.
Oh
The
my God.
Olympic-sized pool
in that
alone.
pool.
Are you
It's
serious?
an Olympic
Yeah.
pool.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I have to say,
People are afraid of.
why
So-
they needed an Olympic-sized pool is beyond me. They have an Olympic-sized pool.
Right.
This is
They-
really
they-
like putting a junior college.
Yeah, there's an article that they wrote in their newsletter that we have that is said how their $6.5 million Italian pool,
Yeah.
which I saw, it's the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life, solved their swimming needs. Because they used to have kids have to wait, and then they were there till late, and they couldn't get all their needs met, and this pool met their needs.
It's
So
an
why do
Italian
they
swimming
need this
pool.
pool?
Yeah, right.
But at the meeting that I was at, I think in the back of the room, one of the guys said to somebody else, the question was about the extra pool, and it was, oh, the public wanted that.
What?
What?
It's like,
This is
they
a
didn't have
common-
their story
yeah.
straight. They had a comment
Yeah,
something.
you know what, at a meeting with them, when they were talking about the pool, I said, I've heard one person that would like a pool.
Yeah.
There's their public.
That's like at the Beaman Park. Nobody is clamoring for a high school regulation-sized basketball court on the field, but it seems to be the order of the day. And
you have
if
to
you get
have
one
that.
person who says, "Oh, that looks good," then that's the community has asked for it. It's not true. And one thought that I think is what we're circling around here is the process that's on offer from Harvard-Westlake. I mean, I know they're trying, but this could
Trying
not
what?
be trying something.
Trying
They're
to
trying
snow
to
us.
get the word out
They went
about
from
their
talking to
project.
one neighbor
And
at
I
a
can't
time to
speak for
30.
them, so I don't know if the purpose of having meetings of 25 people at a restaurant is to test the waters or to provoke hostility. I don't know what their goal is, but they're doing it.
Where do you
And
put
it doesn't.
air-
I don't like it because I think that a process should be
Yeah.
where the people in the community who have information can ask the leaders at the school about these questions, so we don't get, like you were mentioning, Patty, two different stories.
Right, on 2 different nights.
on 2 different nights.
Well,
right.
at the meeting, I asked them the question, because they started out with public access. And I said, well, what to you is public access? Is it the public of your community, your students? Is it the public, the neighborhood around your property? Or is it the public in general? And he says, well, we're hearing that it's more, we're getting feedback that it's more just the immediate neighbors. That's their feedback.
From who?
They have,
Well,
they
they
have
invite-
made a lot of comments about heightened access to people within the directly connected neighborhood, which sounds as elitist as Harvard-Westlake is.
It's a club.
I live in that neighborhood, and I think that's disgusting. But I see and have talked to people who are just lapping it up and thinking, oh, we should get special access. We're the most involved. I mean, we're the most damaged. So they're playing on that, and that's how they report that they've gotten great,
Yeah.
success with
They
that
are, and
idea,
that
which
lets
is-
also-
them
Yes.
totally control access to just a few.
Yeah,
they're
that's
controlling. They're
dis-
controlling the
disgusting.
feedback with these small.
Totally.
Invite,
exactly.
they're
And that's
controlling
why they
feedback.
did it this
Well,
way.
and the presentation was mind-numbing. Mind-numbing.
In terms of good.
No,
It's
it wasn't. It was
psychologically-
just psychological. You were
To wear you
worn down
down.
by
Right.
it. He wouldn't let you talk. He wouldn't let you ask questions.
Who's
Not
he?
interactive.
Who is he?
David
Weil
Weil.
is the CEO.
David Weil. He's
Oh,
a
CEO.
CFO.
We have a comment.
Of
in the
Harvard-Westlake?
corner.
CFO.
CFO.
Just 1 second.
And,
Linda.
and I was there last night too, and may add a few points here. Number one, When my 21-year-old son saw that they were splitting this up during the summer with 4 small groups at the 6th, his first reaction was, "That's divide and conquer." I said,
Oh,
"You're
yeah.
absolutely right." And he said, "Why don't you turn the tables?" And this is Jesse talking. He's saying, "Why don't you have one large meeting where the entire community will be there as much as possible, and invite them to come and do their
Very
drawing party
smart.
show, and let them hear from everyone, or
Well,
most everyone."
You know, I think that's a great idea, Rick.
I do too.
You
So
have a
do we
comment?
want to, like, move to the board?
Yeah, I mean,
An idea to have like a Friday night deal at the library where we invite Harvard-Westlake.
Yeah.
That's
They
not
can
big
come or
enough.
The
not.
library would not be big enough.
No.
Okay,
Beeman.
so.
Maybe
Beeman.
Beeman.
No, well, not big enough.
Well, then
Walter
that-
Reed's auditorium.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I
Well-
like
Because
that.
it's not on
Yeah.
their turf, but it
Yeah.
holds 800.
Well,
Okay.
let's put a pin in the
Yeah.
location, but that's a good pitch.
Yeah.
Certainly, because it's a big auditorium
Yeah.
and it's accessible.
But we
I
have
like
to-
Beeman also because it's a.
Too small.
I don't think it's too small.
Really?
You have
Yes,
to,
it
this has to be
is.
very well publicized.
It's too small.
First of all, I'm not sure that the purpose of
Whatever.
of a forum like this is to. We could pack it to show, you know, but I think it's really about communication with them. And yes, Adele and then Peter.
I think packing it, because I think what they're doing right now, part of this divide and conquer thing, is they're going back, because it was mind numbing. The first meeting, I think no one really spoke out like we did last night.
Right.
But they're saying they're for it. They don't mind.
Right.
And the other thing that I just wanted to say about before you spoke, and I was like jumping out of my shoes, but people were talking about it as if it was a done deal.
Right. That's the
They
main
were not
problem.
talking about it like, we don't want this shit here. They were talking about like asking minute questions
Right.
about left turns, and it was like,
decorating
wait.
the tree.
Right,
I know,
exactly. Like, you know, so, yeah.
Is this going to be Brown Act, this meeting? Because if it is, don't do it.
No, a forum.
As long as it's not under those.
Let me give you the options, because I'm not going to decide myself. Then the board's going to decide if they want to. Or, by the way, we can always create a community forum if the board doesn't want to do it.
There is
but
one
let's
reason
but
for
let's
Brown
not.
Act, so you can video. But
Well, no, and also you can video a regular meeting, but a Brown Act. But just so you know, the neighborhood council itself is the 15 people who sit around the orchard. We have one tonight. Rick is on the board. Any other board members tonight? No. So you know that's good, but. They are also very interested in this project, in this stuff, and you know the reason why we would get them to approve having a forum would be so that we could pick a venue and pay for it. That's the only reason. And since most of these venues are virtually free, we can operate toward that. You know, and I'd like to get the board on board. You know, with supporting it, but it's not the be all or the end all of our community having a meeting. So I just want to say that. You know, but Patty.
Harvard-Westlake has a reputation, as we learned in Coldwater, of bringing their parents and we call them the red shirts. Alumni.
Red
They have
shirts.
they've sent letters to alumni saying, you must go online and support this this project. They've told parents they have to support it, and they've told the tennis pros that they can't oppose anything because they won't be able to use the property now.
That's bad.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
So they're
they
all
make
afraid
threats.
to show up.
Tennis
They're bullying.
retaliation.
There's 34 pros that work out of those tennis courts. 34
Now,
that
currently.
that make their living working there.
Partially there, presumably.
Well, pretty much.
Yeah.
So there's like, maybe 10 that make it are full
Wow.
time. So they're going to be they will not be able to work. And then all the community people that go there, even Claude teaches 100 kids a week. 100 kids a week during the summer. Just one teacher. And all
Disappear.
of that is gone. They will not have that even with 8 courts, from
Yeah.
16 now to 8.
Yeah.
They won't have teaching pros because it'll be a liability.
You know, when we lived in the Brentwood Santa Monica area, there was constant pressure on the veterans area.
The VA?
The VA area is privately held. It's leased to the VA for like $1 a year. And the family was gonna sell. And the developers were just pounding on it. I mean, they just wanted to turn it into another Century City. And the community was really successful in fighting back. And now they had a different emotional plea because this is veterans. Where will the veterans go? but they were 100% successful. One of the things that they did was call that area the lungs of the area.
You're going to turn it into lead.
That's a good point. It is the lungs of the air. Those
Okay,
trees
between
are-
that and Beaman, the lungs of our area.
Well,
So what I was gonna say is, because if we have a large meeting, they'll bring half the people.
right, to make it seem like this is a great
We
opportunity.
could make them get passes for people who, if
We
you
could do
live
the same
in with
thing.
X number, a half a mile of the property,
True.
you get a pass and you may come in, show us your driver's license.
And that's why, if it's not under the banner of the
I
neighborhood
would
council,
love
if
to do
it's
that.
posted by me or you or whatever, then we
Okay.
can make up
Can
our
you
own
make it
rules.
I know, but how do you
Right.
advertise it then?
I have people.
No, but I think,
What'd you
I think
say?
first of all, I
have
think the
people who
president, I
come
think the
from
board will
all
be
over,
supportive
from,
of
like,
having a
Mulholland.
forum.
I
I
have
think.
people who come
I
from
can't
I think
speak
so
for the board.
too.
I think
but
that this
will
is
be. The
an
problem
issue
with
that's worth
then
doing.
that's gonna
Yes.
include their
May I add this
alumni who
point
went to the
too, and-
school 30
Yeah.
years ago.
Lori, yeah.
Something I ran across recently, and that is, I didn't know this, that Harvard-Westlake shares that newer tennis complex at Valley College.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they put in.
They
but
paid for it.
They
They
paid for
and
it.
so.
No.
And they will not
Turnbull
let
paid
anybody
for
else
it.
use it.
So.
I know who paid for it.
Can that be leveraged to maintain, if there is a different plan, a downgraded plan, to maintain the 16 courts, to say, let's consolidate your people, your students who are running all the way over there. If you own this property, they can be doing it here. And I know they downplayed the number on the
I
golf.
asked that question, and he said no.
And
So
I know they downplayed the golf team too, having only 16 or 20, we don't know. But you know, a pitch and putt course that you have there, that's 2/3 of a golfer's game, you know? So why don't they bring back all those students who are running out to Balboa? I know they gotta play 18 holes to get their game down, but they could be practicing on a pitch and putt right here on their own property to help maintain the golf course and the tennis courts as they are now.
Is the land use committee on this at all? I mean, we're
Um,
government affairs, but we're talking like we're land use, so why aren't
Well, the
they-
land use issues, I think, will be addressed by land use at some point, but as we've agreed, there's an agricultural zone, and it's really, they're gonna do a conditional use permit and articulate what they think they can get away with, and then the city, with pressure from the community, is going to either say, you can't do that, or you can do that.
The
I'm happy to
city,
give
the
you a
community's gonna have a
opinion
say in
offline.
that
Yeah.
CUP
They
before
call it a
write
public process.
Well,
and
it's gonna be.
Right, exactly. And we're gonna speak up, and, but your point is reasonable. These are some land use issues, and there's some technicalities. There's also some technicalities about, the entitlements on the property as we speak. And I think people are looking into that. But in terms of a way to, define a conversation with them about this. I mean, what if people want to get in the same room with multiple community groups, not just one necessarily, all of whom have a stake in these open spaces in Studio City, and talk with them openly about the concerns and get a straight answer and record it, frankly, because I think when you have meetings in back rooms where nobody's around and you're not allowed to make a recording, that's what sets this kind of tone where one person hears this, the other person hears that, and then we'll decide later, and it's a disagreement. But I think, and also we're not, Studio City knows how to pay attention, and I think there's a big difference. I can't say for sure, but the impression that I got when this all went down at the beginning, when they were it was a relief that it was not a big hillside invasion. I was wary of this, but I thought they were going to retain a portion of the golf, maybe downsize it to 3 holes and do to put one soccer
They
field.
said they were
was
going
what
to.
I thought.
They
I
said
kind
they
of that was
wanted
my
practice
imagination.
fields.
Right.
That's how they came out.
gymnasium.
But adding the
But it didn't
S
talk
and the
about a
gymnasium and the pool.
It said we
Right.
need it for practice fields, and that's all I thought it was gonna be.
One man
Right.
categorized it the best. He says, you're maximizing the property for Harvard-Westlake and minimizing the benefits for the community.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're very specifically interested in meeting the school's needs.
Well,
And-
it's their
But their
property now.
language is, this is for the community.
Yeah.
Their language betrays them. I
Totally.
mean,
It was, because when they first put it on their website, it was called the Harvard-Westlake Community Athletic Center.
Oh, God.
Then our consultant went on later and noticed the
The
word
river part
community.
was removed.
No, the community word was removed. So I had a friend of mine email them and go, where'd the word community go? And she never got it. They answered her, but they never answered that question. Then the next minute, they come out with their plan and call it the River Park.
Yeah, the river park.
You know who
That
needs to
makes-
be involved in this? That woman that comes with her dog.
Melanie?
Melanie?
No, please, no,
No.
no.
We know Melanie.
Okay.
Well, everybody,
She-
everybody
No.
who wants to be, everybody who wants to be involved,
But
exactly.
the other thing is just
Let her be
about
with her
because
dog.
they call it River Park, they're
Okay.
very much into, as Alan Diamond keeps calling it, mission creep, which is they talk about how if the city and county will give them permission,
Yeah.
they will maintain the entire redo
The river.
and maintain
Make it
the entire
beautiful and
river
not scrappy
from
like it is now.
Whitsett to Coldwater. Which on the surface, if you don't know how things work, that sounds fabulous because
Yeah.
everybody's pissed off about how bad it looks.
Yeah.
That's our property. That's not Harvard-Westlake's property, and that's how it's going to stay. And I mean, if the
So the
council
kids
or
can
the
walk
county
down.
allow that, we really have to do something. That is not their property.
No, and it's part of what they're offering as the 6-acre
Yes.
walk around. So that's a bit of.
They could
Well,
lease
no,
it to
that,
them
that
now.
part's
It's
not part of the 6 acres. That's
They just-
on the
an
property.
additional.
This
Oh.
is
But
the
there's-
river, the river,
The river
Wait,
walk, the
let me
greenway.
understand.
the greenway,
Greenway.
current greenway.
So the current, but the
Here.
river walk will be along the river. And then
So-
around the rest of the campus, there will be a walkway right next to the river
Which
walk
they
that is
Correct.
Yes, yes.
Harvard,
but what they're
but with a
Correct.
fence
Look.
on the field.
This
Yeah, but-
brown part is the river walk, or
Right.
greenway. What do you call it?
Got
No,
it.
no, no.
River
The river green, the Zephyr
This
Plaza,
is
the river
this is
green,
what the
LA
city
River
owns
Green.
now.
It's
Got it.
actually a
And there's a
weekly.
bank that
Got
goes
it.
up there.
Right.
It's like
And
20 or
then
25
this
feet
is their
wide.
walk around the property.
20 feet wide.
So how could you enter from the river to the walkway?
Well, you,
Could you?
You
uh,
can- because
Yeah.
Harvard-Westlake
Yeah.
wants to have an
Transportation
overlook.
is next.
Here, give me that one.
Yeah.
This is an overlook. See this jut out here?
My
Yes.
husband's
See how it's already jutting out
He should come
closer
over.
to the greenway? See how close it's
That's an
getting?
They're gonna
overlook.
park in there.
They want to have an overlook and they want to
Here.
have rocks
Right.
and
That's
things.
on
That's prominent on the website, right?
That,
Would you-
and that's on the actual slope, which is county property. County or
Oh.
city. Yes, one of them's county, one of them's city. The
Right.
slope's one, the greenway itself, the flat greenway's the other. But
I was-
either way,
I was
they're
told-
government owned, they're not privately
I
owned,
was
Right.
they're
told
not
that up at the
Harvard-Westlake.
street side is county, and then down below it's city.
Okay,
The- the-
well,
The
so
tree mess is
it's not
county.
Harvard-Westlake's.
it's not Harvard-Westlake's, and
No.
while they
But they
think
wanna
they're being
maintain
good
it.
guys
Yeah.
to say,
Good
hey, we'll
citizens.
take it on and
Yeah.
keep it
They're
beautiful.
gonna say a lot of things
That's
to make
their-
us say yes to their
Oh, yeah.
project.
Exactly, but
That's
that
why it's
one
mind
is
numbing.
just
Isn't
taking
Audubon
over.
taking over the?
For a year. They're,
Just for a
they're
year?
cleaning it up now. They have a commitment for a year
Okay.
to clean it and keep it clean.
And who was responsible before? Was it Esther?
The MRCA.
So Esther Feldman's group turned it
No,
over
no.
to
Emma,
them?
Santa
yes.
Monica Mountain.
No, it's, the MRCA is the arm of the SMMC that was
Right.
tasked with cleanup, starting with Esther Feldman passing it on.
They're the
Esther
ones that
Feldman
failed.
just got the grant to do it, which did not apparently cover keeping it nice.
I have
Yes.
a copy of the letter that Mr. Commons
I
from the
need-
school.
Oh, that's
sent
great.
2 years ago when they announced the purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And among the many things that he outlined was the most important. They value the tranquility of the Weddington property. And when you look at this plan and you see what looks more like an Olympics training facility,
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it
and
will
having
be.
it in use 6 days a week, all day
Oh.
parts, all night parts, really.
Right.
Actually,
Where is the tranquility?
He downplayed that. He said
they
it was
it's
only-
every day of the week. They even
Yeah.
said Sunday
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, because
No.
they've said not on weekends, and now they've been creeping on that now.
Right.
And then they
Yeah.
said, yeah,
Everything they say is a lie.
Well,
Everything they say is
I mean,
a
I think that whether I can't speak for them, but I think we have to hold them accountable on these things. And
Absolutely.
the way to do that is to, speak with them and get them in a room where we can, raise questions, where it's not a time pressured situation where everybody is shut down, where there's no follow ups, where people can't pile on. And when I say pile on, we can still have a civically
Right.
minded. We don't have to be rude. I don't like meetings where people get out of control. But I think that we should be able to speak openly. And I just want to say one thing. It's respectful to when a billionaire comes around and drops $43 million to be respectful of that. It's a very nice gesture for his school and whatnot.
Well,
but $43 million is nothing compared to
Right.
our neighborhood all piled
Yeah.
around.
And
We are worth a lot more money all of our properties together around that little $43 million, that the idea that they could commandeer what has always been by practice publicly accessible 100%, but by contract, that's the contract of the law. I mean,
Right.
now they can change it, but can they put fences up and restrict the public access? I mean, I think that it's worth a fight on behalf of the public of Studio City to make it so that, part of this remains really open and not so that none of this happens in a part of that. If they, I don't know what the compromise would be, but that's my speaking for myself, Yeah.
He's big,
Yeah, he's a formidable guy. He
Yeah.
also owns the Daily Journal.
Yeah.
Patty?
He's
I
Yeah.
think what one of our goals
He's
would
not
be
the
is to get the word out that it's not a done deal.
Right.
And
That's
there's
our
something
main
we can do
thing we
about it.
have to.
Yeah.
But a lot
Can I
of
see that
people
for a
just
second?
think it's a done deal, and it's unfortunate, the way they've come
How,
across,
how
it's
they
a done
present
deal.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
We have to get that out.
And
Right,
that's
so
the problem
have
with
Okay,
it
so
too
here
long.
here's my
How do
thought.
we do it?
that is the
Okay,
problem with
that-
Weddington
you have to
One
get the
at a
word out,
time. Okay, go ahead.
but here's my thought, because we have to have a plan B, C, and D in terms of contingent. At what point will we say yes? And for me personally, it's the environmental impact of this, of chopping down all those trees. So I think that like
They say they're going to replace them with 4 times as many trees.
And they say they're doing
They don't
the
have any
same
spot.
size.
That's their answer
How
to
can
that.
they possibly do giant trees?
They can't.
They have to
can't.
put more.
That's what they said.
We would have to approve the green. Okay, that's the compromise point. The fence, I don't think they have to put the fence up. They have to protect their students.
Well, there's a fence up there now.
Make the fence the most important
The only way to make more
thing.
green is to get rid of the building and the pool.
Yeah,
Well,
that-
then maybe
that-
they have to reduce the size of those things,
Yeah.
okay? But
These are ideas.
negotiating
Right.
options.
I just think that it needs to be, let's find out what the legal, what legally what you're supposed to do. That's the line until you.
What do you mean?
Well, until we know what the environmental rights we have, and as far as the
Land use
the
issues.
land use issues.
The
Until
golf course
until you
on
know
the
any of
zoning
this,
thing.
you don't negotiate any of this stuff away, because they're not going to listen to us. It's all about what they're
Right.
legally allowed.
And it
to
can't
do.
be emotional.
Yeah.
It has to be based on legal
Right.
zoning, and understanding that they can buy their way through that.
Right. But I think I don't know that that you can't. There's some things money can't buy, but obviously, and I think that the community support is important, and if we,
Right.
we shouldn't give it away too soon, so to speak, because there are real issues. And one thing that I can speak on behalf of myself feels like a logical thing to nix from their plan, in addition to the whole thing. But the real thing that infuriates me is that corner where it's very quaint in Studio City with the little Weddington hut and the golf amenity.
Right.
That
Putting
is,
green.
as I said at the beginning of the meeting, that is culturally, historically significant to me. Now, I mean, that's not how it works, but I don't know if it's I know it's important to Studio City. It's been there for a long time, although I don't know how long because I get confused. But
1955.
that building. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. My house is older, but still, that's pretty good. And it's just iconic Studio City, and that whole section where people go off on the first couple of holes is those beautiful trees, and it's such a lovely outdoor space that whether you're walking on the street nearby or driving, it's incredible. And if they could retain, I understand 9 holes of golf in Studio City has been a tough sell for many years. That's why they keep running at it with these bad ideas. But to get rid of the public's ability to walk over there without a badge or some kind of clearance and just participate in that open space with, is just appalling to me. So they better think about undoing that, that leaving that. Maybe that's their position. They're asking for all this stuff, including stick the second field right on top of their cultural historical landmark, so that we go, wait, you can't do that. They go, oh, okay, we'll take it
No,
away.
they're not
Now we
thinking
can
that.
do the rest of it, which is not okay either.
They know they're not going to get everything they want. They have said that.
Critical is Krikorian's continued support
Yeah.
by his first letter that he wrote that said that he would.
No intrusive
No intrusive
structure, which is the gym.
Mm-hmm.
No above ground parking.
Above ground parking?
No,
No
a
above
building.
ground parking.
Meaning no structure.
No
Oh.
intrusive building. And then I was just quoting it in a thing I was doing the other day. And then benefit to the public, question mark.
Yeah,
What
right.
is the benefit to the public? And I forget what else is in there, but that's what we keep going back to as the baseline of his support.
Yeah.
So, looking at trying to get people rallied up, so we have sportsmen's now that the water feature is reduced to something this deep
fountain.
and modern fountain with a little plaque, and then we
Plaque for the
have
fish.
possibly at the park we have something that looks like Wells Fargo being built there. It's a pretty modern industrial looking thing is what they want to put up. So that's. I don't know, there's no ode to 1950 Studio City. I mean, that says park to me. And now this, it's like we're being attacked on multiple levels, erasing any kind of history.
Well, not to mention every single family home that gets built. That's an attack on
all of it.
50s, yeah.
You mean the
Actually, more so.
McMansion?
The
Yeah.
connections.
Well, the woman
Every
did say,
McMansion.
on Rye Street, she said she does not understand, she's lived there for years, why the city in their right mind would want to expand
I agree.
that rec center
Yeah.
into a
It
big
makes no
mess.
sense.
It makes no sense.
It makes sense because they have an agenda that's a parallel agenda, which is to do impressive things and cut ribbons and be platinum leads, which I think most people in this room would be excited about being green, but it's so ungreen to put a big building in a field, in a place where people hang out. And
What we had yesterday at National Night Out, almost that entire space would be filled with rec room and gym, with a little breezeway and some other stuff in between. They're just breaking up the whole open space of that park.
Welcome, sir. I didn't see you come in. How are you? Are you a member of the public? Or are you here
I
to?
am.
Great.
I'm supposed to attend the transportation.
Oh, perfect. So you're
And
a little
it
early
is
for
almost
transfer. Yes.
7:30.
We have about 3 minutes, so we're going to
2
make our
minutes.
motion and move forward. Yeah.
Can I just
Lori,
say one more? If you SCNC has a meeting or a pop-up or whatever, I suggest this. If you have Harvard-Westlake come, you're gonna have a screen. They're gonna present. However, the way they have drawn this is so manipulative because it needs to go like this. It needs to be a giant screen of wall to wall the plan. They've
Yeah.
presented it this way, and then they've got their bullet points of what each item is, and it's this nice little watercolor rendering. So
Right.
it's friendlier than a giant. You've got to make it show as a wall-to-wall,
Fill the
full-screen
right.
size.
Somebody needs to make a 3D version of it where you actually have dimensions, height to these things.
It's so important. I've been thinking about that also with the
Who
park.
doesn't know
Also-
who could
so-
do that?
And there's slides, by the way,
Outside my
also.
world.
All along here are the palm trees.
Right.
What they have in their slides that they're left there are beautiful pine trees. So they've altered what's actually there. Have you noticed that?
They made it look slightly
They
different.
make
right.
it look like it's
Wait,
this.
these are
these-
here, right now. They're
They're-
pines
That's
and
on that
palms.
But
Is
along
that what
here
you're
is
saying?
almost all palms, right?
It is.
The trees that they're
Yeah.
gonna get rid of are the pines. Do you see what I'm
Not
saying?
all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
But in the middle, here. I'll show you. This
Any-
is what they're going to
any
get rid of. So you see,
closing
that's
comments?
it. All those trees are gone.
Um,
Right,
All
in the
those-
Barry
middle.
has a-
Oh,
all these-
absolutely.
I just
All-
think
yeah.
you
It's
don't
at
you
least
don't need a
100
motion
trees.
for
Yeah.
this
But
because
they-
you don't need a
in their
motion to
renderings
ask
on
the board to
website,
have
it looks
to
like
explore
they're
having a meeting,
beautiful,
but make it
big,
part of your
old,
report like you did last
pine
month.
trees, but they're
month.
not. These are the
To
palms. These are
them.
where palms
Well,
are.
I'm going to ask.
I'm just saying.
And
Yeah, but I want to make a motion because I think people came in from the public and asked, more or less for a meeting, and so I will make a motion to,
We never make a
ask the
motion
board.
to our own board, though.
Oh, we don't. Well,
yeah.
that's okay. I mean, we make a motion on actions that we want to take. I wrote possible motion, so the possible motion is to ask the board to consider having a pop-up forum, if you want to call it that, or an open forum with Harvard-Westlake about the plan to, their plans for the property, to which the public will be invited to ask questions and is open to all at one of the available venues, whether it be Beaman or the library or a third venue, like you mentioned, Walter Reed Auditorium or something like
And
that.
good luck getting them to show.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Well, I think they'll
stall
show
as
up.
long as-
No,
They'll
no.
stall as long as they can.
But I want to say one thing in defense of Harvard-Westlake, since this is being recorded, and I'm a wimp. No, I'm kidding. I think that they genuinely understand that there's going to be some resistance to this, and that they want, I believe, on some level, to, get their goals accomplished and bring us along, the people. So that's a high bar because they've not behaved that way so far, and we'll see. But I think that, we can, acting as a community and acting responsibly, advocate for the community, and also hopefully they'll be good partners, or at least neighbors. I mean, that's not to, tamp down any resistance, because we should speak up and we should be very clear about what's appropriate. And Studio City deserves access to these wonderful open spaces. We've all been here for years, many of us, and many of us are new, but we, it's worth fighting for. I'll just say that. So with that said, we can move on that item. Anyone want to second my motion?
Second.
Good, Marcia. And then the next item is just a quick question about these meetings. We agendized the idea that we should make recordings of these kinds of meetings so that other people could listen. Like, for example, after this, someone might want to hear what did they talk about, and they'll hear the 1 hour conversation. We, in our neighborhood, have done that sometimes, and we've done it not so much in some of the meetings. So I'm just bringing it up because I think it's important. We missed one of the board meetings, and I asked the president, if we could make recordings of our meetings so people could watch. Not instead of doing minutes, but in addition to. And, there's not really much to do on that other than to bring it up, and we brought it up in bylaws the other day as well, so we'll see what comes of it. But that's that. Anyone want to comment on that, feel free. I'm interested in feedback on that. Go ahead.
I think every meeting that's any version of a neighborhood council meeting should be recorded and on our website so that citizens can hear them and hear what was said.
Yeah, I think it's an amenity for them.
I think it's very important.
Any other comments on that? I appreciate everyone coming tonight. I think this is an important meeting. I'm glad, and we will try to get, as I say, a forum going and report back as soon as we can. We'll obviously agendize it if we can get it going. And thank you all for coming. Are there any other closing comments before we clear the room for Barry? Closing committed from the chair, I'll wave, and we're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very
Thank you
much.
very much.